In this week's episode, I'm joined by the co-founder and director of Toast, Rob Ely. Toast was founded in 2020 by three friends, Rob, Daniel and Louis. Toast is a chain of independent coffee shops with locations in Braintree, Chelmsford, Sudbury, Witham, Colchester and Witham Station. In this episode, Rob shares how he and his team built a people-first, proudly independent coffee brand that's redefining the high street experience. He discusses their approach to community-driven growth, sustainability and staying true to their values while scaling a successful retail business in a competitive market. Rob, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So when you and your co-founders started Toast, what gap were you trying to fill on the high street?
So it's a bit of a bizarre one, to be honest with you. So the idea itself has kind of been sitting in my head for as long as I can remember. And the idea that I originally had is basically not what you see today. So the idea that I had was, I thought to myself, everybody loves toast, right? Yep. So this is where it come from. Everybody likes toast, whether you're a 2-year-old having some jam on toast or you're 102 having a bit of marmalade on toast, whatever it might be, and everybody in between, everybody likes toast. So I had this idea whereby let's have a shop that just does toast and then the tea and the coffee be kind of secondary almost.
Yeah.
And so when we opened up the store 4 weeks before lockdown, we had about 120 different spreads,
right.
Loads of different peanut butters, loads of different jams, Marmites. We've got stuff in from America, and that was kind of my original idea that had been sitting in my head.
Yeah.
And the sort of philosophy behind it was like, you know, go back 30 years ago, people would not have been paying £3.50 for a cup of coffee. But I kind of wanted to kind of create this thing. But I was in the wrong place, man. I was in Braintree. Do you know what I mean? And I think it was just far too cutting edge for the Braintree folk, and it just didn't work. Like we had about 120 different spreads, and all we sold was like 8, which was like your Marmite, your strawberry jam, your peanut butter, and that was it.
Right.
And it was just a terrible failure, if you want me to be completely honest with you. But the shop itself and the idea was like cool, but it just didn't work. So we had to quickly diversify. But that was the idea that I approached my 2 business partners with and said, look, do you fancy opening up a coffee shop with me? This is the idea. And they said yes.
And so they were on board. They were on board the idea of toast.
I think so, yeah. I mean, they could see how passionate I was. I had a restaurant at the time that was relatively successful. And I think you've either got it or you haven't with regards to being sort of entrepreneurial minded. Mm-hmm. And I think they probably saw that I was keen and I was a hard worker. And so they sort of backed the idea. So yeah, the 3 of us went in together. But yeah, ultimately it was me that come up with the concept. But like I say, it's very much evolved since then.
And so how quick of a pivot was it?
It was a pretty quick pivot, to be fair. So we, like I said, we opened 4 weeks before lockdown.
Yeah.
So we had the point in which obviously we had to close. But because we were independent, mm-hmm. The moment that we could find a way of opening, we did open. Mm-hmm. And so we opened, and then because like I mentioned, the restaurant down the road, we started doing toasties, mm-hmm. And we were making them down in the restaurant and we were bringing them up, and they were on point. They were like really, really good, almost too good to be fair. So the chef, super creative chef, was like all over making some toasties, but after about a week and a half, 2 weeks of making 50, 60 toasties a day, he'd had enough. So we then changed the concept again. So it was still toasties, but just a simpler model.
Right.
So we were making those changes, but you know, the game-changing point mm-hmm. was during that crazy time of COVID. We had a queue. So we were right next to, in Braintree, which is our first store, we were right next door to Costa Coffee.
Right.
And there was a point where people were queuing out of Costa and along the front of our store. And we had like 2 people in the store and all these people queuing into Costa. And I took a photograph of it and I stuck it on social media and basically said, what are we doing wrong? And it was a long post, and I kind of tried to cover every pocket with regards to any backlash that I might have got from any trolls that are out there. But I just basically said, look, this is our coffee, this is what we're doing with our toasties, this is what we're doing with everything else.
Yeah.
Why are you going to Costa and why are you not coming to us? And the reaction that we got was just mad. Like everybody was like, well, we just always go to Costa, it's just what we do, and we didn't even think about coming to you. Mm-hmm. And from that moment, people just started drip feeding, coming in more and more, and then we just made sure that we delivered excellent service every single time. And Becca, the manager in the Braintree store, she's amazing. She's still with me since day one, and it's just gone from there. And now we take more money than Costa. So
then
all
you
good.
could get a picture of people queuing out for your store across.
Yeah, 100%. That's a great shout. We're not quite there yet, but yeah, no, we're working on it. But yeah, so that was kind of the journey. So that post on social media, yeah, it went sort of viral within our town community. And
so it's interesting that so they didn't actually have anything concrete to say. They weren't like, oh, actually, Costa's better, or there's nothing.
Not at all. No, nothing. It was mad. It's all habitual. Do you know what I mean? It's just people, like, sometimes we're a little bit like, and I don't want to generalise, but we're a little bit like ants, aren't we? Do you know what I mean? And as much as we just follow the route that everybody else is taking, and I think, you've got your high street coffee shops that people just feel safe. They know what they're going to get. They might not even get a great product, but at least they know that they're going to get a crap product. I don't know.
And you know what to expect.
And so they just follow that route. So for me, it's about breaking that habit, trying to get them to come into us, see what we're about, and I mean, ever since that moment, we've just been tweaking the model to make it, to make sure that ultimately, funnily enough, we're right in the middle of redesigning our brand guidelines at the moment, and better, really simple word, but that's what we want to do. We just want to be better at many things than what's being offered at the moment, and so that's what we're focusing on.
Amazing. And so, you're proudly independent.
Yeah.
People first.
Yeah.
You talked about redoing your brand guidelines or your brand ethos. So how does that notion of being people first and independent kind of filter into everything that you do?
So the independent side, I mean, we do get a little bit of a backlash now because we've got 6 stores, but it's kind of educating people with regards to, the larger chains. I don't know if I can mention their names. I've mentioned them twice already, but the larger chains who are effectively, take Costa Coffee, for example, owned by Coca-Cola. Not a lot of people know that, but they are, a big, huge global corporate business that does operate in questionable ways. I'm not saying they do, but there has been question marks around them, we want to separate ourselves from that effectively. The money that you spend in our store stays in the country. Do you know what I mean? It's not being shipped out to offshore bank accounts or anything at all like that. And so that's what we mean by independent. It's 3 mates that have got a chain of 6 coffee shops in Essex, and we're supporting the local community. So that's kind of what we mean by independent, as opposed to a single shop. Sorry, what else did you...
And then people first, the people first part of that.
100%. So, and it's not just about our customers, it's about our staff as well. And don't get me wrong, it's really, really hard to navigate yourself through, different personalities and different ways of people looking at certain things. But ultimately, we just want to look after people. I'd like to think I'm a nice person, and just want to be nice to my fellow person. Do you know what I mean? And so looking after our customers, making sure that they're listened to, making sure that the staff are listened to. I remember when we had a member of staff, started 3-4 years ago, and came in and had this idea. And I can't remember what the idea was now, but I had this idea, and within a week it was like in 3 of the stores. Right. And I remember him saying, like, that's amazing. Like, I had an idea, and he come from Starbucks, and he was like, they'd never listen to me like that. And I mean, you can't really compare the two, but so I think that's really powerful. And so whenever we're interviewing certainly people in a more senior role within the business now, they've got real input with regards to where the business goes. If they come to us with an idea, 100% we'll implement that idea. But the same as the customers, we'll listen to our customers, we look after our customers. We put a huge emphasis on, when people walk through that front door, about us saying, hello, and greeting them in the way that we should do. If there's a bit of a queue, we still take a moment to say, look, I'll be with you in a second. Yeah. All of that. And then when they leave the shop, make sure, have a nice day. And it's just that customer interaction. And we just want to kind of create a culture through the entire business, be it people that we employ or be it people that visit the store, that it's just being nice to each other.
So, so like people first, in as much as genuinely looking after each other.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm sure, does that help? You mentioned, for example, the manager of the Braintree stores, them there from day one. So does that help them with staff retention when they feel like they're listened to? And
100%. Yeah. I mean, look, we've had you know, it's been a rocky 5 years. I mean, we've had some horrific moments where, you know, tears and all sorts with different members of staff. But ultimately, that's the place. That's the place where we want to be. Where we want to be at, where, you know, the staff do feel looked after, and we have got a low staff turnover. You know, we are in a challenging world, and actually to recruit a new member of the team, to bring them into the business, to teach them how we operate, to teach them how we do our things, and then for that to be part of, you know, embedded in them, it takes time. Do you know what I mean? It takes months really for them to get it right. And so if we have a high staff turnover, you're just never going to succeed, because you're always trying to educate, and you just won't be able to do it consistently, especially as we grow. So having members of staff that we can hold on to is key, and, you know, the only way you're going to hold on to them is if you look after them.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to go back a little bit so you had the first store, so you pivoted,
yeah,
you went into lockdown,
yeah,
you worked through all of that, those restrictions. At what point did you decide, you know what, this has really got legs, we want to have a second store?
So my business partner Dan had a clothes store down in Walthamstow. And we don't really talk about this anymore, but for this purpose I will. We're just trying to blank it from our minds. But he had a clothes shop down in Walthamstow, and it was in a relatively prominent, it was on the high street, it was a corner unit, it was about 1,500 square foot, so it was a nice size. And he basically had about 2 years left on the rent, and he said, look, Rob, what do you think about taking Toast down there? And I said, well, we naively agreed that we would, and it was just a catalogue of problems, it was very tough. Servicing the store, you know, an hour and 15 minutes, you know, coming into the ULEZ footprint, obviously additional costs there. We moved into a demographic that we just completely didn't understand. We had to effectively create the brand. So if you open a shop in, you know, 15 minutes down the road from your first shop, then the brand can feed off each other.
Yeah.
You drive an hour and a half away or an hour and 15 minutes away, you're starting from scratch again.
Yeah.
And where the brand was quite strong, we sat in this really weird place. So like if you take your main high street coffee shops, your Pret, your Starbucks, your Costas and all of that, they're brands that people recognise, and so they feel safe going into them. And then you've got some really cool quirky independents that people go like, I'm not going to the chains, I'm supporting the independents, and rightly so. But we were like this strong brand that nobody really knew, so all the people that support the brands were like, well, I'm not going there, and all the people that support the independents were like, well, no, I'm not going there, that's a big chain clearly. And so we sat in this like no man's land, and it was just awful. Like it was just, it was a nightmare. So we had that for about a year and a half, and just tried to make it work, and we just couldn't make it work. We tried reducing the prices, we tried putting the price up, and the products were good, the everything was good. We just didn't get the footfall.
Right.
And so we closed it down. It was a nightmare. So we don't talk about that anymore.
Okay. And so then
I tell you what, sorry to interrupt, but we did, we learnt so much.
Yeah.
Like we learnt so much. So actually, I suppose on one hand, it cost us a fortune and it was a lot of wasted time, but we learnt some things that will put us in good stead to make sure we don't make those mistakes again. For example, you know, Pret a Manger was just round the corner and they were queuing out the door every single morning, and we were probably like 150 metres from Pret. So we thought, look, lovely, we'll have all the Pret customers if we get it right. And it made us realise that how important location is. Like it's not about, you know, being in an area. It literally goes down to the shop. You can have a shop that would be on one side of the street would be super successful, and on the opposite side of the street, 20 metres away, it could be an absolute failure. And so, you know, lessons like that, for example, that we learnt. So we're just way more in tune now with regards to the decisions that we make with regards to opening stores.
So does that go back to your ant theory? Is it almost like down to the path that people take to the station?
Great analogy. 100%. Exactly that. And we're seeing that now. So, for example, our store in Chelmsford is kind of up the wrong end of the high street, and I think people are, and again I'm not generalising, but people are or can be lazy, and so I think you could have an absolute die-hard brand ambassador, But if they've got to walk 200 metres to go and get a coffee in that direction when they've got a coffee shop just there, they're just going to go just there. Do you know what I mean? So that's made us kind of think to ourselves, well, hang on a minute, rather than keep taking all these towns, why don't we open a second one in Chelmsford? Why don't we open a third one in Chelmsford? And so they're the sort of conversations that we're having behind the scenes at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, it reminds me of the fact that when you walk down, say, Piccadilly or somewhere like that, and there's a Pret on both sides of the road, because actually to go and find a crossing and cross and go...
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, 100%. That's it. Exactly that,
They obviously had enough footfall to be like, oh, well, we could have one on each side of the road because, you know, people just
We've got two toasts in Whittam, and I mean, I don't know if anybody watching this knows Whittam. I mean, it's not the most desirable place in the world. Nothing against it. There's plenty of worse towns, but it's not, you know, it's a bit of a commuter town. And we've got two toasts in Whittam, and they're both doing really well. So yeah, it just goes to show that, you know, its location is important.
So what was your true second store then, if you like, or the second one that stuck?
Nice, I like what you've done there. Yeah, bypass that one. So Chelmsford, it was okay. Chelmsford. Yeah. So we basically we opened up in Braintree, and then, like I say, Walthamstow, and that's the last time I'm going to mention it now. And then Chelmsford, Sudbury, Whittam, Colchester, and then Whittam, the second one in Whittam, which is by the train station.
Right.
But it's like. It sits just outside the train station. There's a little lay-by there, and it's just probably about a 10-metre square unit, but it's like our poor person's drive-through, because that's all we can afford to create at the moment. We can't afford to do one of these big shiny ones, but you can literally just cut through from Whittam to Braintree and just pick up a coffee or a toastie. So yeah, that's all we can afford, but we're working on it.
Love that. Big thanks to EDF Small Business Team for sponsoring this podcast. Powering the High Street, a bold new initiative from Enterprise Nation and EDF, has been designed to breathe life into the UK's high streets by supporting the next generation of retail entrepreneurs. Whether you're a seasoned shopkeeper or a digital business ready to make the leap to bricks and mortar, Powering the High Street is your gateway to making a meaningful retail impact. Explore the resources and get involved by visiting the hub now. Find more details at enterprisenation.com/powering the high street. And I thought you said something interesting. I know we're not going to mention Walthamstow again, but you said that the brand was almost so strong that people thought, oh, this can't just be a local chain.
Yeah.
But was the brand always created with the idea of scale? So when you opened your first toast, were you like, okay, this is a concept we want to replicate? So the brand was almost built that way from the get-go.
So it's really quite bizarre. So it's only up until really the last, I'd say, 6 to 9 months that we've kind of taken a conscious decision to now scale, and I can kind of come to that in a little while. But up until that point, we've just been in this weird place where it's like, should we open another store? Should we open another store? Like there hasn't been this like aggressive rollout of stores or anything at all like that. Both Dan and Louis, my business partners, they do property development. So for example, Sudbury, they got the commercial unit at a decent price, because you can pick commercial units up at relatively reasonable prices nowadays, and they just took advantage of that. And so they basically phoned me up and said, just let you know, Rob, you've got a new store in Sudbury. It's like, oh, right, okay. So do you know what I mean? So it's a little bit, so it's not been, it's just been like an organic growth, I suppose. But yeah, no, we are looking, we've kind of moved away from that stage now, and we are kind of moving to a period where we want to kind of grow in a more structured way.
But that was always the idea from the get-go, was that there would be multiples.
No,
just the first one.
No, we just opened one. I sat at home. I distinctly remember it. Had my laptop out and had paint, and created the logo on paint. And then I messaged them over to Dan and Louis and said, "What do you think of this one?" I went, "Oh, I'm not sure about that one." And then I sent over the toast one, was just like a normal O. And then I don't know where I got this idea to put a heart inside the O, and then put the heart inside the O, played around, done it white on a black background, chucked it over to them. They're like, "Yeah, it's wicked." I was like, "Yeah, it is wicked, isn't it?" And that was it. So yeah, we didn't spend thousands and thousands of pounds on a logo or anything at all. That we literally, it cost me an hour of my life to create the logo. But we've I mean, this is a bit of a retro t-shirt, because we've now got coffee that sits underneath toast, and that's like a fixed part of the brand now. And so realistically you shouldn't see it sitting like this anywhere anymore. So it's Toast Coffee, and that is the brand. And then we've got which is protected, and then we've got the O protected, or we're in the process at the moment of protecting that.
And so it's interesting you mentioned that about coffee, because I wanted to ask you about that. So it started life, as you said, something quite different. That it was all going to be about toast.
Yeah.
And then it became about toasties. And I was going to say, what is it now? What's the...
So our number one... So it's quite hard to educate, but people are... But certainly as we're opening the newer stores, people are getting it a bit more. But toasts now is a... I was never good at English, so if I've got this wrong, then I apologise. But it's not a noun, so it's not about toast as such. It's Toast is the brand,
right?
And so it's more about so it's just effectively the brand. It's the name. It's Toast, and so we've very much distanced ourselves from Toast being about toasties. Our number one product is coffee, and we are a coffee shop that just so happens to do amazing toasties, as well as matcha and all of that bits and bobs that everybody else is doing. But it's it's. Yeah, I mentioned, didn't I, about better. We want to do the best toasties. We want to do the best matcha. So we make sure that we get a really good sort of, ceremonial grade matcha, which is absolutely delicious. And we only put in real fruit purees. We don't do, other coffee shops stick in just syrups. We're putting in real fruit purees that cost us more money, but you can tell the difference.
Yeah.
And so it's just those little things, making sure that it sits where it sits.
That's what people love. That's what they come back for, right?
Exactly that. Yeah, 100%.
It reminds me of Dunkin' Donuts in the US. Actually, I think they've actually renamed it to Dunkin', but they're a coffee shop basically. They sells donuts.
But I think the reason that we want to stay true to being a coffee shop as well is it's just about that association for the customer. If we were just say, for example, we were a toasty shop, then realistically you're not going to pick up any of that morning trade, and you're not really going to get that afternoon trade either. It's about, oh look, it's a lunch spot. So then suddenly you're rammed for like 2 hours between sort of 11:30 and 1:30, and then you're dead either side. Whereas I think one of the factors of being known as a coffee shop is, from the minute you open to the minute you close, you're creating there's something there. We've got a really really delicious decaf coffee, and so that afternoon coffee drinker can kind of come in and not worrying about disrupting their sleep. But then we've got iced drinks, and we do really, really good milkshakes as well. So after school stuff like that. So we've kind of got that. We've kind of got an offering throughout the whole day. But ultimately, coffee sits at the core.
So going back to the idea of expansion, so you said you're at this phase now where you do want to scale. When you're looking for new sites, I know you mentioned that sometimes you just get informed that you've got a new shop.
Not anymore. That's not going to happen again. That was there. But
if the price is right. But when you're actively looking at a new town or a new area or just for a new site, what are your criteria? What are you looking for?
So at the moment, it's about expanding our footprint. So we've kind of got like it sort of goes sort of Sudbury, Braintree, Chelmsford, Colchester. So basically everything sits almost like a diamond. And so it's about, if you can imagine 15 minutes outside of that diamond is effectively where we're looking to go. Because obviously you've got to think about servicing the stores, and the last thing you want is a store that's an hour and a half away, and then suddenly you've got additional costs for driving and transport and bits and bobs like that. So it's and the issue that I mentioned to you about the brand as well. So it's very much about keeping it, just slowly expanding that footprint. So 100%, we wouldn't look to suddenly go, let's go to Manchester or anything as well. That's not going to happen. And then with regards to the specifics of a town, just looking for really good. Certainly now looking for absolute A1 locations, and just making sure that we sit. I would happily sit next to a Starbucks, a Costa, a Cafe Nero. Got no problem. Go back 3 years and I felt a little bit nervous about it, but even with the Braintree Costa success, but I'd have still felt nervous because the model wasn't right, and we've been tweaking the model. I feel that this year we've turned a corner massively with regard to the model and the processes internally, and so I'd say bring it on. Let's sit next to them.
And I suppose they do a lot of research into their locations as well. So you know if you're sitting next to them, then they're...
Well, I'm a massive believer in looking at what the bigger chains do, and then almost replicating that and look at, because you'd like to think that they've got these, you know, teams of, you know, 10, 20, 30 plus people that have made that decision for a reason with science behind it. So why would I go out and spend all that money on that science when they've done it for me? So if they're putting their shop there, then great, lovely, I'll go next to you then, because obviously you'd like to think they've done their due diligence.
Yeah, so. And you're not afraid of a bit of competition.
No. Well, it's the whole. Somebody once told me about the Coke. The Coke vending machine thing. I don't know if you've ever heard that. There's like a Coke vending machine. This might be completely false, but I heard it somewhere. But a Coke vending machine that sits on its own, and then takes kind of like, say, £100 a day, and then you put a Pepsi vending machine right next to it, and then suddenly they both take £150 a day, because it becomes that place that sticks in people's minds more. So this is the issue that we've got in Chelmsford, for example. We're up one end of the high street, and up the opposite end of the high street you've got Pret, Costa, and they're all there. So people have this subconscious, like, oh, I'm hungry, or oh, I want a coffee, I'm going to go that way, because they know there's that gaggle of shops. I don't know what you call them, but so that's where they go. Whereas we're sort of like on our own up the other end. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it makes sense, I think, to sit yourself in amongst it all.
Yeah. Years ago, I worked in Shoreditch, and we used to call it the Pret Triangle, because it was like Pret, Eat, Itsu, like all in a sort of triangle.
They do feed off each other. One day you'll go to Pret, and then you'll go there the following day. Go, do you know, I don't fancy a Pret today. I'm going to go and get an Itsu.
Yeah.
And so it just works. Like it does make sense. And so that's very much, when it comes to location, 100% sitting amongst it all.
So you've grown over the years. You know, you started with the one shop, you're now at 6. Have there been any surprising challenges that you maybe? I mean, I'm sure there's lots of things you didn't anticipate, but anything that kind of sticks out?
I think the biggest challenge that we have has got to be people. And I know probably most people will say exactly the same, so it's probably a bit of a boring answer, but it's so true. Like, when you're dealing with different personalities and different ideas, different perspectives, and on top of that, you don't know what's going on inside people's heads. Do you know what I mean? And you don't know what's, effectively sculpted them up to that point in their life, in which time they come into your life. Do you know what I mean? And so, that's the biggest challenge. Having people come into the business, and you think they're great, and you think, oh wow, this person's got a real future with us, and then 3 months, 6 months, 12 months later, there's a load of stuff that happens that you're just like, oh my god. And especially me, I'd like to think I'm a relatively nice guy, and I'm a bit of a sucker for a sob story. So I kind of just want to help people. Do you know what I mean? And so that can sometimes massively work against you. So so I think recruitment, especially if you look at what's going to happen next year with regards to removing that 2-year buffer that we've got, or we have had, and all the rights on day one. And by the way, I'm not saying they shouldn't have rights on day one whatsoever, but it just means we just need to be on our A game. But it would have probably been a much scarier prospect 4 years ago that happening, because we were naive, whereas now we make sure that we have a proper onboarding process. We make sure that the interview process is the right way. We've just had Candy come in as our ops manager, who's mustard, like, she's brilliant. She's come into the team, and it's just like, oh my god, where have you been all my life? Mind you, having said that, who knows what's going to happen in another 6 months? She might turn out to be a nut like some of the others, but she won't know. She's cool, but because you recruited her properly. She come through a proper recruitment agency, and we got her the right way, and she's got she's come from some really exciting brands, and she wants to join the journey. So I would say, in answer to your question, definitely people and navigating our way through that has been probably the biggest challenge. Without a doubt. Because I'm sorry, but for me, if I've got a job to do and I'm supposed to be at work at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, I'm going to be there. And even if I wake up and I feel a bit rough, I'm not going to let my team down. I'm going to be turning up at 8 o'clock in the morning. So many people aren't like that. Do you know what I mean? And then suddenly, if you've got a coffee shop that's supposed to be opening at 8, and then you get somebody just like they can't come in because they've got whatever, then it creates problems. And all I want is just a phone call the night before. Do you know what I mean? Not a minute before the store's supposed to open.
Yeah.
And then that puts the whole thing under pressure. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so they are the challenges, but people.
You must have had some element of that with the restaurant, but I suppose this is a whole different scale when you're talking about multiple sites and you're not there to oversee every site. And
I think, I mean, one of my biggest lessons that I've learned is. I think there's a book, The Power of Giving Power Away. I've not actually read it. It sits in amongst all the other books that I haven't read, but I've bought that not read. But one of my biggest lessons was about 5-6 years ago, something like that. I split up with my wife, and it was a little bit messy, and I ended up taking my kids on full time. Getting a bit personal now, but took my kids on full time, and it meant that I had to, and this was before Toast, I had to step away from the restaurant. I had no choice. And before, I was Mr. Micromanager. Like I was, if anything wasn't right, I'd get the ump, and it just, everything had to be perfect. Maybe one of the reasons it was successful, but probably not necessarily the right way to manage. And what my lesson that I learned was stepping away and allowing people to just get on.
Yeah.
It's a game changer, because you actually find out, are they good enough or not? And actually, I think people want to be given responsibility. People don't want to be micromanaged.
No.
And it was such a lesson, honestly. Like now, looking back, I mean, it's so obvious now, because that's something that I use in everyday life. Just the store's yours now. You're the store manager. Crack on. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're on call 24/7 unless you're on annual leave or off sick. Get on with it. Do you know what I mean? Whereas before I'd be like, any problems, just let me know, and I'd step in and I'd do this and I'd do that, and no, just let them get on with it. And it makes so much difference, and I feel they enjoy the job better as well.
Yeah. And gets you stop being the bottleneck for the whole business.
100%. Yeah. So I'm with a few tweaks within the business, I am now in a position where I'm taking a step back. And I can be way more creative with the brand, with what we're offering, with just creating stuff behind the scenes, and obviously the growth element. The last 2 weeks I've probably looked at more shops in the last 2 weeks than I have in the last 5 years of having the business, where I've had that time speaking to agents and just doing that really good stuff. So which is where I need to be. So yeah.
Fantastic. What advice then would you give to other independent businesses, retailers or hospitality, who maybe, like you, it's a saturated market, right? The coffee market. So you need to be different to stand out. How would you suggest, if someone's listening to this and thinking, how can I stand out more in my own sector, while staying true to your values? What advice would you give?
So, the first thing I would say is make sure that this is what you want to do, because hospitality and retail, it looks good from the outside looking in, but it is hard work, like ridiculously hard work, and the margins are tight. You're dealing with you're not necessarily dealing with professionals. You're dealing with a lot of we have a lot of students, young members of staff, where this is just a stepping stone for them. So they've not really got that true passion, and there's just so many reasons not to get into this industry. And so I would firstly say, look and see what else is out there, because if you want to make money, this is probably not the place to be. And then beyond that, just try and I suppose just try and know yourself. Like, I think take marketing, for example. How many people sit in marketing, but they've just not got that natural ability for marketing, and so they're kind of creating brands and they're doing all these marketing things, but they just haven't got that eye. And so no matter how much, the sad thing is, they're going to college, they're going to university, they're dedicating their whole life to marketing, but they haven't got that eye. And so I would kind of say the same thing. If you want to get into hospitality or retail or something like that, then great. but just make sure that you have got that natural talent, because I do think it makes a difference. And I think that is, I walk into, there just seems to be that romance about owning a coffee shop or owning a restaurant.
Yeah.
And I walk into so many coffee shops and so many restaurants, and I sit in there and I'm like, branding's wrong, that's wrong. And I'm looking at, like, you've got 4 members of staff on, and you've kind of got 2 people sitting in here, that's costing you £50 an hour. Like, that's not working. And it's just such obvious stuff that if your brain's in that zone, then you see it. But if your brain's not in that zone, you don't see it. And then they're suddenly 6 months later scratching their head while nobody's coming through the door, and they're having to remortgage their house. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's probably the advice I would give. And then if you understand that, how hard it is, and you've got the eye, mate, do it, because it's good fun.
And I always think, when you said it's romanticised, I always think that in Netflix rom-coms, they always, it's always like move back home, open a coffee shop or a bookshop.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's mad. And I don't really know where it's come from as well, because you get some people that open these things. They're not even sociable people. This is like, we've had a coffee shop. Some new owners are coming to a coffee shop just around the corner from us, and they're like so miserable. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? Like, but it's it's bizarre. But I mean, I think there's a big difference as well between a lifestyle business. So going in and opening one coffee shop and it becoming your life. Do you know what I mean? And you really think about the menu and the different specials of the day and your coffee, and you just enjoy the entire process, and just sitting at one store and just loving life. Do you know what I mean? And having it as a lifestyle, and you're working for yourself, and then doing effectively what we're trying to achieve, which is to open multiple stores. I think there's a massive difference between the two, because it's definitely we're sort of moving into a different world now, a more of a corporate world, where we still want to stay massively true to our values, but it's hard because we're having to make some sort of commercial decisions which now go against the grain of the brand. But if we don't make those decisions, we can't then grow. Right. And so it's hard. It's hard. But we want to hold on to as much as we can.
So that brings me on to my final question then. So you talked about more stores, but what else, where do you see it in the next 5 years? More stores, diverse product line? Like what's the kind of vision?
So, we've brought in a new marketing manager. Started with us 4 to 6 weeks ago, and she's still Shelley. She's still very much finding her feet with regards to understanding the brand. And before we're doing anything else, we've kind of taken it right back to basics, and we're reviewing the brand guidelines and everything like that, and positioning ourselves for growth, and just thinking about silly little things. Like if you think about local, so we've lent very much on local since day one. Yeah. But if we're going to grow and we're going to become like a national store or chain, can we then say local if we're all dotted all over the place? Probably not. So it's something that we're kind of removing from what we're doing, and it's more about the quality, and still looking after good business. We'll still very much be looking at knowing your supplier and stuff like that, yeah, sorry, I've lost my train of thought a little bit now. What was the question?
Where do you see it in 5 years?
Right, okay, yeah, cool. Sorry, that's what I was getting to. So I can read you, and you'll be like the first person or one of the first people to hear this. Did you want to hear our mission statement and our vision? 1 second, let me find it. So our vision... this is hot off the press, by the way. Our vision is to obsess over our customers and create a new coffee culture that's genuine, consistent and easy to connect with. We believe in Toast as a catalyst for mindful moments, everyday joy and a sense of belonging. Toast is your family, whoever you are. That's our vision. And then our mission is our customers and the world they live in sit at the heart of every decision. We aim to consistently exceed our customers' expectations.
Fabulous. And I think it's interesting you said that, because you said a connection and that the sense of belonging, and I think that is about local, isn't it? Because there are national chains that like you say, the kind of the communication just goes straight into head office, and they don't really engage in their local area. But I think you can have a chain that is also engaged.
We will 100% hold on to our community, without a doubt. Yeah. So we do something called coffee for a coffee, right? Which it basically means every single time a customer comes into one of our stores, every time somebody buys a cup of coffee, we donate a cup of coffee to charity, be it food bank, be it whatever. And that is very much, so we task each manager with finding 2 charities in their local area that is looking for donations of coffee, and it's only a small thing. But if we all do something small, then obviously we can make a big difference. So that's something that's very much community based and supporting the community. And it's not just about the coffee. It's about coffee being a symbol for people to hook up, sit down, talk about what's on their mind, and all of those things as well. So the community side, 100% will hold on to our coffee grounds. Go to Sue in Sudbury, who's got her own farm and she uses it as fertilizer. So they all go in that direction. But 100% we can have a network all around the country supporting that person, that equivalent person in different communities. So community is definitely something that we'll continue to stay with, and looking after the people around us.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your vision, your mission. It's fabulous talking to you, and thank you for being on the podcast.
That's been fun. Yeah, cool. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You've been watching the Small Business Retail Sessions podcast, brought to you by Enterprise Nations Powering the High Street Hub, in collaboration with EDF Small Business. To learn more about the work EDF are doing to energise small businesses and how they can help you on your journey, head to enterprisenation.com/powering the high street. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time.